and Second Continental Congress. The Continental Congress is an assembly of revolutionary patriots from all of the 13 colonies who want to solve the horrible crisis that King George has put them through. So far, there have been two assemblies. The first meeting was held in Carpenter's Hall, Pennsylvania, and it included some of the up-and-coming patriots like George Washington, John Adams, and Ben Franklin. They came to discuss about what to do with the new Intolerable Act that was placed on the city of Boston because of the Boston Tea Party. Excuse me. After a few hours, they concluded to sign a pension to the king, or a list of grievances that the king ignored. Now they have decided to meet again where they will write a Declaration of Independence.
Reaction.
Good evening, I'm Tori Floyd reporting on the Battle of Lexington and Concord. Last night, the British officials marched from Lexington to Concord, Massachusetts, in pursuit to seize the colonial army's arms. Witness Paul Revere gave a warning to the colonial army by saying the British are coming. This allowed militiamen to organize and get ready for the British in pursuit. When the British made it to Concord, they were met by militiamen and ended up having to surrender because of the intense fire. They were led by Lieutenant Colonel Francis Smith, and he was the one who decided to take action. This act, led by the British, started the American Revolution. As tensions continue to rise and the fighting continues to occur, we will keep you colonists updated. It is estimated the British suffered more casualties, captives, and wounded than the colonists did. Thank you, and I'm Tori Floyd.
The British are coming! The British are coming! The British are coming!
Wait, what? I heard the British are coming. Hoorah.
God!
Good evening, I'm Jessie, and I'm here with the report of the Battle of Bunker Hill. On the 17th of June in the year 1775, British troops of the Boston garrison fought the American Continental Army on the Charleston Peninsula of north side of Boston Harbor. For 8 years, 1,500 Americans have been fighting against 2,400 British in order to prevent the British from securing the hills. On the 15th, the American colonists heard that the British were intending on taking over the Charleston Peninsula, and so the Americans invaded their camps. Now, as the battle is coming to an end, Great Britain had 226 soldiers killed and 828 injured, while America has only 115 killed and 305 injured, along with the 30 British soldiers that they captured. However, it appears that the American Continental Army is running out of ammunition, and here's some footage of the battle.
Attack. Hey, get up. Hey, we're coming to attack you guys. Well, come on. Oh no, I'm out of ammo.
This is Josh Burns with the evening update on the Battle of Trenton. Those two battles were caught perfectly, by the way. Chronological to the Battle of Bunker Hill, the Battle of Trenton took place on December 26, 1776 at Trenton, New Jersey. George Washington had made his famous crossing of the Delaware River to surprise the Hessians, or the German soldiers employed by the British. It was early in the morning when George Washington, with the Continental Army, marched stealthily into Trenton. At roughly 8 a.m., Washington and the Continental Army began to charge. They entered the city at 2 points. John Stark marched into Trenton on River Road, which was west, and Nathaniel Greene and Washington entered from the north. Thus, using the element of surprise, Washington and the Continental Army forced the Hessians to surrender, giving Trenton over to the Continental Army. Thank you, and That is the update for the Battle of Trenton.
Max Foster here, reporting with the winter at Valley Forge. The winter at Valley Forge refers to the winter of 1777 through 1778. George Washington led his army to Valley Forge after suffering a defeat at the Battle of Germantown just north of Philadelphia on October 4th. The army was to camp at Valley Forge for winter and go back to battle as soon as the warm weather returned. Conditions in the camp would, however, prove tough to the Continental Army. Quarters were damp and crowded, and the soldiers in the camp were deprived of adequate food and clothing. Many of the soldiers did not have boots or anything to keep their feet warm. This and lack of other clothing resulted in an outbreak of diseases such as typhoid, dysentery, typhus, and pneumonia. Estimated 2,000 of Washington's 12,000 died. However, the hardship made the army grow stronger and closer together as they eventually became a more successful army with a new spirit. Thank you.
This is Kellen McLemore, and we're here in Saratoga, New York, where there has been 2 ongoing battles, and it looks like the Patriots are going to wrap this one up for the win. The Patriots have received loss after loss, but this might be a turning point for them. General Benedict Arnold and his Patriots outnumber the General John Burzon and his Redcoats 12-6. I've just been told that John Burgon has surrendered to the Patriots. The final death toll here today is America 90, Britain 440. Wow, the Patriots really needed this one.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is Josh Burns on the evening update for the Battle of Yorktown. Out of all the battles during the Revolutionary War, the Battle of Yorktown was the most important because it was the battle that gave independence to the Patriots. The day was September 28, 1781. George Washington stood with 17,000 French and Continental soldiers ready for blood to be shed in the city of Yorktown, Virginia. There were about 9,000 British troops down in the city, and when Washington gave the signal to charge, he sent 5,000 American troops to block the British from escaping by land, while the French naval fleet blocked them by the sea. British General Lord Charles Cornwallis and his troops were surrounded. After about 3 consecutive weeks of fighting, Cornwallis surrendered to the Americans on October 19, 1781. It was the last battle in the American Revolution.
Good evening, I'm Tori Floyd. Tonight we have a special guest, George Washington. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Washington. So first, tell me about your childhood.
I was born February 22nd, 1732 in the colony of Virginia. I lived in a large house. I was the 5th out of 10 children in my family.
So, why were you elected General of the Continental Army?
Well, I was elected General for the Continental Army because of my experience and knowledge of war. I was a part of the British Army during the French and Indian War. This gave me advantage as General of the Continental Army because I knew British war tactics.
When did you take command of the Army?
The Army came under my command July 3rd, 1775.
Did your Army contain African Americans?
Yes, there were approximately 5,000 African soldiers.
Interesting. Who were your allies in the Revolutionary War?
The French were our allies during the war because they despised the British. The French supplied us with war necessities.
That's good. How long did it take you to beat the British?
The war lasted 8 years, from 1775 to 1783.
That's a long war. So, your wife's Martha. When did you marry her?
Me and Martha got married in 1759.
So, what did Martha contribute to the war?
During our rough winter at Valley Forge, Martha came periodically to help feed and care for the sick soldiers.
That's very thoughtful. Now, were you pro-slave or anti-slave?
In my early years of running a tobacco plantation, I needed slaves to cultivate crops. However, after the war was over, I freed all my slaves.
That was very nice. What made you want democracy in America?
After the war, I was asked to be king. I declined the offer because America had already been ruled by a monarch for too long.
That is very true. Now, when did you resign from the war?
I I finally resigned December 23rd, 1783.
That is a compelling interview, Mr. Washington. Thank you for joining us. That's all.